Welcome to Workstyle Stories, because life changes and every life is different. This week, we're talking about how changing life circumstances can happen at any point in your career, and they can really define how you work and the career that you have afterwards. Before we get into all of that, I'm going to ask our guest to introduce herself. So tell us who you are, where you are, and what you do.
My name is Laurel Farrer. I'm located in Connecticut in the United States, and I am the founder and CEO of Distribute, which is a remote work consulting firm and really pioneering the future of virtual organizational development.
Ooh, remote work consultant. So presumably you've been doing that for the last 12 months off the back of everything that everyone's experienced, or what were you doing before that, or how long have you been doing it for?
Yes, we've existed since 2017 as a consulting firm. So definitely before it was cool, there was not much market viability back then, but we're honored to be able to be helping so many people now. But yeah, that was just as a firm. And then I've been consulting independently for over a decade.
Wow. Over a decade. So that's almost the dawn of smartphones, isn't it?
Yeah.
Certainly not cloud computing and all of the things that we take for granted nowadays for remote work.
Yeah. I managed my first hybrid team. Didn't have language for it back then, right? It wasn't called hybrid. It wasn't called remote work. It wasn't anything like that. But yeah, I managed my first hybrid team 15 years ago and fully distributed team 14 years ago. So no cloud documents, no video calls. It was impressive. In the era of email.
That's impressive when you consider how many people are struggling with it even now today with all of the technologies that we have to make it easy. So 15 years ago, so when it wasn't even a thing, so what happened to push you that way? Because that was obviously very entrepreneurial and futurist of you to do that. Was that a personal situation?
Yeah, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So yeah, the first hybrid team came from the fact that we were shifting locations at my place of business. And so some people, we had to move into a tiny little temporary location. So some people worked from home for a little while and some people worked in the office. And then the next distributed team that was fully physical, we were really small. We needed to expand, but we didn't have the revenue yet to support a big new office. And so it was a contingency plan, like, let's save money in this way. So yeah, that's what it looked on the operational side. And then on the personal side, it was exactly the same thing. Like, I had a series of unexpected life events of personal illnesses and illnesses of loved ones, and getting married unexpectedly and having children unexpectedly, and being a non-traditional university student, and life just going very, very, very different than the plan that I had.
The perfect linear journe from student to successful career.
Yeah, like go to college, get the job, have the family, right? Like it was so perfectly planned. And it just didn't go that way. So all along, it was just me trying to say, okay, well, that traditional corporate journey that I had planned on and that I want isn't necessarily an option. So what can I do instead? Like, how can I work with what I have now and get as close to that as possible? How can I still have a career? How can I still develop in myself as a professional while still having the flexibility that I need and want? And so it's just figuring it out all along the way.
So does that go back to the beginning of your career then? So post higher education?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I was always pitching ideas to employers. I haven't applied for a job since I was 16 years old. It was always me approaching employers to say, I see that you have a need and I think that I can fill it. Here's what I can do for you. And would that help? And them saying, yes. And so I was like pitching them on the idea of like freelancing before I knew what freelancing was. Like, I can help you for a few hours because I got to go to school and I got to take care of my baby and like all of these things. So, yeah.
You've touched on two really important things there for me, I think. One is not applying for a job. Yeah. So I think work stylers and people who decide for themselves when and where they work, as a result of doing that, also have to understand their value. They're measured much more by output and what they deliver. Yeah. And so they have to understand their value and present it to an organization and say, this is what I can bring. And that relationship is about work that you give rather than work that you get as an employer, or as an employee rather, which is a huge difference. That's the first thing. And the second thing that you've talked about is the career stage that you're at is right at the start. And everybody that I hear who is kind of struggling to understand remote work, one of the big things they talk about is how impossible it is for people who are at the start of their careers to learn things that they need to learn when they're not in the same room, not in an office, rubbing shoulders with their more senior contemporaries. How have you found that? Would you say that that's true? I mean, I know you've had a non-traditional career path, but what was your learning and development like during that time?
Yeah, if I could define my work style in one word, I think it would be proactivity, because I was always trying to compare myself to that ideal career that I wanted in corporate land, that, the business suit and the conference rooms. I wanted that so bad. And then it didn't happen like that. And so it was always like, oh, I'm a failure because I didn't do that. And so I had to work very, very hard in that proactivity to stay on top of my mindset to create that confidence for myself of, just because I didn't achieve that doesn't mean that I'm a failure. So let me look at what I do have to offer, what I can win at, and like what value I can contribute to an employer. And let me focus on that. Because imposter syndrome is really common for remote workers. And so you do have to be willing to be flexible. We're flexible workers in a lot of ways, right? So we have to be flexible in our mindset of, just because we're not somebody else, or we're not the version of ourselves that we think we should be, that doesn't mean that we're not valuable. And so we really have to be very transparent about the value that we do have and what we can contribute to clients and to employers.
Well said, Laurel Farrer. There's a bit of pressure that comes with being a remote work consultant, which is to have the idyllic work style. So describe yours to us, Laurel. No pressure, honestly, but what's your work style like? How do you make your work fit around life, and what's the kind of your week like?
Yeah, I am a person that likes structure. So a lot of people anticipate that I'm like this digital nomad, or, I live this completely flexible lifestyle. That's not it at all. I like structure. And so I like working the same hours every day, and I like having my space of where I work and where I don't work. So yeah, I live on a farm in rural Connecticut. And so I live a very, very peaceful, introverted life, that I drop my kids off at school. I go to the gym, I come home, I work, I pick up my kids, we make homemade dinner, we, go for a hike. Like, that's my life every day. It's really simple, and I really like it. But it's nice to be able to talk about that. I have kids and I have a balanced life, because for a long time, until about last year, I was not able to really be open about the fact that, yes, I am a business owner and a mom, because there was a lot of controversy there. I would only be seen as a woman who wants to work from home because she's a mom. And they were not listening to me as a business professional and a thought leader in the space. So
you kept it. You kept it under wraps then.
I did,
because of the negative impact it would have on your work.
Yeah, they wouldn't. They were going to listen to me as a mom and not as a business thought leader. So my daughter's 13 and nobody knew about her.
You've been remote since before she was born. So
yep.
But have attitudes changed now then in the last year?
In the last year, absolutely, because all of our top executives, they were the ones that thought, no, this isn't possible.
They have families too, right?
Yep, exactly. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, they were put into this position of, oh, if I am saying that remote workers aren't credible, and now I'm a remote worker, I'm saying that I'm not credible. So their tune changed very quickly of, yes, you can be a credible professional while working remotely. And that's definitely helped the adoption of our industry a lot.
Couldn't agree more. Well said. Laurel, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I feel like I could talk to you forever, but unfortunately I can't. We've been Workstyle Stories then. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.